This is Guaribo Navoria. Just imagine how many indigenous people will be running and roaming around our land today. How many massacres, how many killings of the innocent mothers and children happened to our kind, to our people. Is this the American dream or an American nightmare? Where did our people go? Reservations?
A white man killed an Indian near Custer, South Dakota, 50 miles from Pine Ridge. When local officials charged him with manslaughter, not murder, 200 angry AIM protesters came to town.
You charge a white man premeditated murder. You charge him with second-degree manslaughter.
White man, I have had all the bullshit from your race as I can take.
We're not hostages. We're going to remain here. It's your fault that these Indians are here. Have you listened to them? We're not leaving because you'll kill them if we leave.
All the promises and all the agreements, it was all false.
There's poverty and then there's reservation poverty.
We gave it all. Our food, our land, our gold. And then they rape us. They killed our mothers, our children.
By sexually violating and brainwashing generations of Indian children into believing that their language, culture, clothing, and their very identity was evil. In actuality, the effect of the boarding schools was far more devastating and far-reaching than its creators ever conceived. It is now recognized that the boarding school experience has affected multiple generations of Indian people with such symptoms as alcoholism, drug abuse, incest, sexual abuse, and other major dysfunctions. Almost every Indian person alive today, no matter how successful, carries the residual psychological scars of yesterday and must grapple with the question, when it's all over, will I be Indian or white?
Now just think about your children growing up indigenous, speaking your language, dressing up with pride, eating from the earth, learning from the earth. And then they too are taken away, sent to border school, to take the Indian away from them, to strip them their language away, to cut their hair, to sing songs like the white man, to dress up like a white man, eat food like a white man. And you don't know no longer of your children. Don't even look like your child, because the Indian was taken away from him and sent to a border school. From Borique, they were also taken away Taínos to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Indian school.
Couldn't sing any native songs or tribal songs. They just started using English. You could not use any other language. And we'd whisper it. Pass the crazy gun, pass the bread over. It's like I had to be two people. I had to be Now Cumming and had to be Dennis Banks. Now Cumming is my real name, my Ojibwe name. Dennis Banks had to be very protective of Now Cumming. And so I learned who the presidents were, and I learned learned the math, I learned the social studies, I learned the English. And now Cubby was still there.
This is education that was promised us, that was guaranteed us through the treaties. But it wasn't. It's torture, brainwashing. They called us many different names. Savage, dumb. We got beat for looking like an Indian, smelling like an Indian, even speaking Indian. Everything they did.
There is one dark day in the lives of Indian children, the day when they are forcibly taken away from those who love and care for them, from those who speak their language. They are dragged, some screaming and weeping, others in silent terror, to a boarding school where they are to be remade into white kids.
By the late 19th century, the Indian Wars were over. The United States seized on a ruthless strategy to assimilate native children to a subordinate place in white-dominated society. Government-run boarding schools.
I was 5 years old. My mother was crying and they were taking us off. And my sister Audrey, who also, was like a second mother to me, and a very close friend as a sister. And my brother Mark, they were very sad. Within 2 hours or so after the buses filled up and we were down the road, this is the furthest I've ever been from my home in my life. And then of course it turns into evening and we arrive at this place.
I ended up in a place where nothing made any sense at all. It wasn't home. I didn't know anything about school. Nobody ever told me anything about school. I didn't know what the education was. I remember that I wanted to go home, period. Didn't want to be there, I just wanted to go home.
And we all have to strip down naked, and then they put the DDT on us. They line us up, they're cutting our hair. You have long hair, you have braids, and then that gets cut off. And I would say within a matter of an hour and a half, we're standing there, all looking alike.
Between the 1870s and the 1960s, over 100,000 Indian children were sent to one of the nearly 500 boarding schools scattered across the United States.
Is this an American dream? Or an American nightmare?
I'm one generation removed from the genocide of my tribe. And every tribe in this country has a time of horror. I mean a time of absolute horror when they were confronted by this invader. And some that happened almost 500 years ago.
More than 300 Lakota people lay dead. After remaining untouched in the ice and snow for 3 days, they were buried in a mass grave. The massacre would mark the brutal end of centuries of armed Indian resistance. For those who came nearly 100 years later, Wounded Knee was sacred land.
signs, no Indians or dogs allowed, and had to abide by those signs, being able to go into places. And so from the very time I was very small, I think that I learned that you had to be strong in order to be an Indian. Learned. But 19 million people, that's not a Holocaust.
How many Indians disappeared or were killed? 19 million? More than what Hitler has done. Maybe Hitler got the idea from America. But nobody talks about our Holocaust, our genocide. But you can make a research, think about it. Our own people were killed. Was this an American dream? Or is this an American nightmare?
The food is running short. 1 meal a day is now the rule, and that's not much of a meal.
One time, one of the guys came in and he had a sack on his shoulders, and it was, I don't know, maybe a 50-pound bag of what they fed calves. So that's what we ate. We made pancakes out of it, whatever. We just treated it like flour.
We had been rationing ourselves to 1 meal a day, 1 full meal a day. We are cutting that effective today to 1/2 meal a day. White man, I have had all the bullshit from your race as I can take.
And I'm proud of who I am and what they did and what they stood for. We survived. We've always survived, and we're still surviving.
But I'm never going to let them forget it. I don't think that this country will ever really heal itself until it answers the question of what it did to its indigenous people.
Our own people were killed. Is this an American dream? Or is this an American nightmare?